All right, well, thanks to all of you for hanging in there. So we're gonna, as I mentioned earlier, we've been giving awards out every year since 2021. So we have two different classes of awards. The first is what we call our Open Science Champion Prize. Before we give the awards, let me just step back and say, why are we giving out awards? And the goal when we developed CORES, the goal was really to build community around open science and also incentivize people to do open science. And we figured what better to incentivize people than the chance of winning money. So we put some money on the line and said, we're going to give out these awards. So the first one that we give out is called the Open Science Champions Award. And this is really meant to recognize faculty contributors who've, throughout their career made major contributions towards open science and reproducibility. You will notice some of the faces up there who have been in the room today. And we'll, in a moment, tell you who the next ones are. So just to say how this is going to work, I don't have physical things to give you, but I'd like for the award winners, when I call your name, to come up just so that we can get a photo of us shaking hands. So when I call your name, come on up to the stage over here and we'll get a photo shaking hands. So our Open Science champions this year are Sherry Rose and Rob Willer, so maybe... So actually, why don't well, I have to talk about each of you, so who's on the slide first? Sherry's first, so hang back. All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
So Sherry's in the medical school, professor of health policy, and leads the health policy data science lab, and I would recommend going to her lab just to see I've never seen somebody with such a range of graduate students from different departments in one lab. It's pretty amazing. So this is they've done things like developing this really field-defining lab manual. They hold data jamborees to benefit the lab and the whole community. Sherry designed a course on methods for reproducible population health and clinical research. Clearly, this is a place where reproducible research can have a major impact on people's lives. And so that's great that you're doing that. She's the editor-in-chief of Biostatistics, the journal, and she's helped that journal advance policies on code sharing and research transparency, and has also published guidelines on the responsible use of AI on things like pediatric health data, diagnostic studies, and clinical prediction models. So again, congratulations and thanks for your efforts. Okay, Rob. All right, so Rob is a professor of sociology here at Stanford. You got to move closer to me so you can be in the photo. And one of Rob's contributions has been really as a practitioner and an advocate for pre-registration, which we know to be one of the best ways to make research more reproducible, and also a big advocate for the open science framework as a way to do that. Rob is a PI of the Strengthening Democracy Challenge, which really helped pioneer open science methods, including crowdsourcing, releasing a study design and analysis plan at the time of the first proposal. So trying to work, really transparently. And then, has incorporated open science as a core component of the research methods teaching that's required for all Stanford sociology PhDs. So really trying to, have the next generation of scientists move forward with the set of ideas as their basis. So thanks for your efforts.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks. Okay, so I will call you up one at a time for the next award. So the Open Science Innovators Award is meant for trainees or research scientists, non-faculty people who have made important contributions or demonstrated a commitment to furthering basically the goals of CORES. We've given a number of those in the last few years, and this year we're going to give them to Megan Shea and Veronica Boyce. So Veronica? Yes, yeah. Congratulations. Veronica, who I know because Veronica was not just a TA in Mike Frank's class, but also in my class, has basically been a TA for the experimental methods course for both graduate and undergraduate students, and has really been an amazing advocate for open science practices. And sort of using the data that came from the course that you heard about earlier, Veronica led a meta-science study of over 170 pre-registrations looking at replication success. That's now been published. And her doctoral work includes the development of a new domain-specific data repository working with Mike Frank, which is going to add to the set of databases in that research domain. So great work. Congratulations. Okay, and Megan Shea. Okay, congratulations. We have to smile for the camera. So Megan is in the IMIT interdisciplinary program in environment and resources, and works on intertidal environmental DNA, eDNA, and has used really exemplary open science practices, depositing data to relevant specialist repositories, putting up code on GitHub, sharing Singularity containers and documentation, sharing data on Zenodo, really all the best practices for open science, and kind of linking all those together. And some of the data, the biodiversity observations in this GBIF data set have already been downloaded over 4,000 times, so it's having real impact on the world. So again, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
All right, I'm now going to bring Zach up to tell you about the Open Source Awards.
Thank you, Russ. And Francesca, I'll have you join me. So my name is Zach Chandler. I'm the Executive Director of Open Source at Stanford. That's the Open Source Projects Office for our university. If you didn't know that we had one, you do. And Francesca is our Technical Community Manager, so we're definitely a team. We have a lot of activities that you saw on some of Russ's earlier slides, but one of our core functions is to surface really excellent open source software development projects that are happening all over campus because it's almost impossible to know them all. So we have over 7,000 sponsored projects across every school, and they're all generating code. And some of these are big projects, some of them are small projects, but we connect with all of them. So our maintainers and contributors roundtable, and I think we have a few members here, bring together the coding leads from across campus that might not otherwise have a peer. Maybe they're a sole contributor, maybe they're a small team, but we bring them together in a community of practice that's supportive and helps us all advance. So we're giving out awards today. This is a very challenging thing to do. It sounded like a really good idea at the time. So building on the fact that we're situated within cores actually matters quite a lot. So it's not just open source software, but it's within the research context and the open science context. So to look at all these amazing projects, it says 76 plus, it's more like the 90s, or God knows how many there really are. There's hundreds. But we ask the community and we try to sift through what the research community thinks of as notable open source projects. And which projects do you want to grow the community, has a greater impact beyond the study, beyond the paper. So we have this 76 number, and picking a winner out of that, like who the heck are we? Yeah. So that is a very daunting thing to do, but we're doing it anyway. We came up with an elaborate rubric for evaluating scholarly impact, societal impact. So we look at not just things like citations of the paper, but we look at GitHub, we look at Hugging Face, and various other sources of information, chaos metrics for community health. And we've had previous winners. This is our second year doing this. The winners last time all went on to assistant professorship somewhere. So I know we have causal inference experts in the room, so I'm not going to dig too deeply at that. Green button. Our first winner this year that we want to introduce is Helm. So Helm is the holistic evaluation of language models. Previous speakers were talking about the importance of, AI is everywhere now, but how do we know not just how well they perform, but it's a benchmarking system that is broadly used in industry. They measure not just for things like accuracy and precision, but also bias and toxicity. So if we want a more human-centered AI future, Helm is one of the really landmark projects that does it, and they do it in an open source way. So we have Yifan Mai with us today and other members. So Yifan, if you want to come up, and any other team members that you brought with you. Yifan is a this team has 133 contributors on GitHub. That doesn't just happen. So Yifan is a really great research software engineer that knows how to build community, and it's through responsiveness. So he has this really incredible response rate to pull requests and issues. So anyway, thank you, Yifan, and the entire team for what you do. Thanks. Thank you. Okay, do I have to speed up? Okay. There's so much to say about each of these. Okay, the next project that we wanted to recognize this year with an award is DADA2. So it's an acronym for Divisive Amplicon Denoising Algorithm. So this is Susan Holmes and Ben Callahan, who started out as a postdoc here. Now he is a professor at NC State University. So this is a story of a project that has just amazing reach. And this comes down to, so it's really, at its heart, kind of a data science problem. So there's a next-gen DNA sequencing methodology that it's based on, Illumina machines. But there was a problem in terms of the signal-to-noise ratio that previous methods of analyzing that data dealt with. So Susan devised a new way that allowed to get to much more granular results with a much improved SNR than all previous methods. And this has had major, major impact. So it's not, citations and bibliometrics are kind of a flawed way of looking at things, but you don't get to 25,000 for no reason. Over 700 verified software citations. That's extremely rare. Susan works in R and Bioconductor, and there's also, for library people, where's my library people at? There's a Stanford Digital Repository part of this story as well. So the software project itself shows up in so many downstream applications. That's how you end up with impact like that. Subsequent studies that they do that use this tool impacted things like detecting, having a better understanding of microbial communities and the human microbiome for things like preterm birth. That have now, so this was back in 2016 when the original tool was built. It was built assiduously open. And Susan Holmes is one of our best examples of that. So when the preterm birth paper during review was criticized for having a smaller Stanford cohort, and there was a cohort in Alabama that they hadn't considered, Susan stopped everything and opened it up and widened the cohort to participate from another university. And they took all of their data, they put it in the Stanford Digital Repository so that replication studies could be done based on it. And several have been done since then. And just recently, I found out by talking to Susan that this has culminated now and made it all the way to translation. So they're doing clinical trials based on the findings of the basic science that they were doing years ago. So it's really kind of an amazing, amazing project. Let's see. I think I actually covered all of that. So if anybody wants to talk more about software citation afterwards and how difficult that is, we have some new methods for doing that. I'm happy to talk to you about that. So Susan can't be here today. She's on the road, and Ben Callahan's in North Carolina, and we told him 2 days ago. I think maybe is anybody from that team here, from the Data2 team or Susan Holmes' lab? Okay, so we'll just have to applaud in absentia for Susan. And we have a new category of award this year, and I'm going to let Francesca talk about that.
Sure. As Zach said, I'm the technical community manager, so there is not a day that goes by now that I don't think about the word community. And I told Zach a few months ago that we were very lucky to have in our very, very short 2-year term have so many great members of the Stanford community join our Open Source at Stanford office. So we thought it was right to introduce a new Open Source at Stanford Community Prize. And our 2 winners are James, who is here with us today. He's typically remote, so it was particularly exciting for us to see that he was a real person and that we were giving this award rightfully to him, and Fatima, who unfortunately could not make it today. The Open Source at Stanford Community Prize is really much more than just the technical contributions that James and Fatima have made for their own projects. It's also about the way that they have engaged with the broader open source community, both as maintainers of open source projects, but also to the peers in the Maintainers Roundtable that Zach and I run. For example, James has, under very short notice, done multiple technical demos for meetings, very active on our Slack channel. We have requests from newer maintainers for review on their code, their documentation, their grant writing, and James has always been very willing to give up his time to engage with our community. So thank you for that, and we are very, very excited to award you the Open Source at Stanford Community Prize this year.
Douglas, everybody. Photo op thing. Fatima?
Fatima, who is not here, but since we have been clapping for people who aren't here, I don't think it makes sense to skip what she has really achieved. Zach spoke about software citation. It was one of the very first missions of our Open Source at Stanford office to make software a credible output of research. And we have hosted numerous workshops on how exactly a maintainer of a software project can get their project set up for software citations. And we were worried no one was going to listen to us because this was something new and we were also a very young office. And then one day when I was looking through the ORCID profiles of our various community members, I saw that Fatima had done everything that we had talked about in our workshops for a year, and also posted her preprint on bioRxiv, and basically has gone many steps ahead of what we had tried to do in our first year. And so we thought, in terms of early adoption of best practices for scholarly work, she was very deserving of this Open Source at Stanford Community Prize.
Just one last thing I'll say about Fatima. Wonderful person, incredible community member and contributor. We met her because of Stanford Data Science. So she was a Stanford Data Science scholar. We met at the SDS conference. So the fact that these orgs are kind of nested within each other, that our OSPO, which is a little bit unique in the US, being situated within a Center for Open Science, that actually matters to us a great deal in terms of what we can achieve. So, and CORS being situated within Stanford Data Science has mattered quite a lot. So for our community building and connecting ability. So thank you, Stanford Data Science.
Awesome. Thank you both. If Rochelle, there's Michelle. If you want to come up. So this is the second year in a row that we've worked with the Stanford University Libraries, who are sponsoring Data Sharing Awards. So Rochelle Lundy is going to come tell you about the winners.
Great, thank you. So I'm Rochelle Lundy. I'm the director of the Office of Scholarly Communications at the Stanford University Libraries. And as Russ just mentioned, we're thrilled to be able to partner with CORS to recognize outstanding examples of impactful data sharing by Stanford researchers. So data sharing advances research rigor and reproducibility, but as I'm guessing many of you in this room know, it is also a lot of work. It's also work that is often not particularly glamorous and that often does not get recognized. So we hope that these awards will continue to be a way that Stanford researchers can see those efforts celebrated. So this year, we are awarding 3 prizes, 2 to individual researchers and 1 to a research group. So I'll follow the same practice of talking a little bit about each person and asking them to come up so we can honor them. Our first honoree is Ayako Kawano. And is Ayako here? Great, if you want to come up and join us. So Ayako is a PhD candidate in the Emmett Interdisciplinary Program in Environment and Resources, and she recently generated a long-term data set of fine particulate matter concentrations across India and openly shared it in Zenodo with rich metadata and comprehensive data documentation. And this data set required development of a region-specific machine learning framework and employed some non-standard cross-validation techniques that allowed Ayako to make reliable predictions about many locations in India that lack air quality monitoring stations. And so as a result, this is a hugely valuable resource for both scientific policymakers and researchers. It's already been downloaded more than 1,000 times since being shared just earlier this year, and it's being reused in order to assess inequalities in exposure to pollution, assessing the effectiveness of India's air quality program, and identifying locations for expanding India's national air quality monitoring network. In her nomination, Ayako told us that she really values data as a first-class research object, and we think that's evident from the work she's put into sharing this data set. So congratulations. All right, and our next honoree is David S. Roberts. So if David would come up and join us. So David is the Damon Runyon Cancer Research Foundation postdoctoral fellow in the Bertozzi Lab in the Department of Chemistry and Seraphan Chem H. And he develops innovative chemical biology and bioanalytical methods to investigate the cell surface in the context of cancer. All of his approaches require extensive sampling, which means that he regularly generates a lot of data. And he has exemplified fair or findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable data sharing practices throughout his career and has made many, many data sets openly available in both specialized and general repositories. In addition to sharing the data from his own projects, David has also promoted and enabled data sharing by others. He recently authored a proteomics methods primer that includes detailed guidance on reproducibility in data sharing. He's created discipline-specific open source software, shared open access methodologies, and has also mentored others in data sharing. So we look forward to seeing the strong commitment that he's already shown to open science and data sharing continue throughout his career. So congratulations. Thank you. All right, and our third honoree is a project, the Natural Capital Project, that's a Stanford-based partnership among interdisciplinary researchers, professionals, and leaders around the world, and it supports nature-informed decision-making about policies and investments. So the project is led by faculty director Gretchen Daly, but it also relies on the work of many staff and researchers, and 3 of whom we wanted to specifically recognize here today for their contributions to data sharing. And they're Dave Fisher, senior software engineer, Emily Pavia, the data manager and data scientist, and a name you just heard earlier, James Douglas, who's the software architect. So for those of them who are here and any other members of the project who are here, if you'd like to come up so we could honor you, that'd be great. So Emily and James recently spearheaded development of the Natural Capital Project's Data Hub, which is an online platform that launched in March of this year. It centralizes access to ecosystem services, data from a variety of open sources, and this data can be used as inputs to the Natural Capital Project's own open source software models or exported for analysis with other packages and programs. The data sharing that happens on the hub is enabled by the GeoMetaMaker, and that's a Python library that was created by Dave Fisher. And this facilitates the creation of both human and machine readable geospatial metadata for the data sets that are shared on the hub. And so taken together, the efforts of all of these people have made it possible for many more researchers and policymakers around the world to easily access the Natural Capital Project's data and use that data to support informed decision making. So if we'll now congratulate James, as well as Emily and Dave, who aren't here, and everyone on the project for their work in data sharing.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Rochelle. Great. Well, that is the end of our day. I want to mainly thank a couple people who've played a really big role in putting this together. Laura, in particular, from Stanford Data Science, who's kind of really made all of this stuff happen. Sarah, who's back in the back, who's also been really helpful in making this all happen. And then the rest of the CORS team obviously played a really big role. Hopefully this has energized you to all think about how you can go create your own open materials, YouTube videos, open textbooks, and hopefully also, convince you that you should, if you haven't already won one of our awards, next year you should nominate yourself or nominate someone else, for these awards, because we really want to recognize all the contributions that are going on, and we can't know about them often if we don't see a nomination. So definitely keep us in mind. We'll, if you're not already on the CORS mailing list, get in touch with one of us. We'll add you. If you want to become a CORS affiliate, let us know. We'll add you. And otherwise, we have refreshments, and thanks for hanging in there.